Welcome back and thank you for joining me for Twisted Movie Trivia, the Super Challenge. In this Twisted Trivia Super Challenge, the clues are going to be super tough. If you can figure out the answers on your own, you are a true movie master. But for this particular challenge, I would recommend that you grab your phone and use your favorite search engine. Remember, you will need to know the actors who played the characters in the question. Then you will need to figure out from the clue what movie those actors were in together. Play alone or against each other. Again, these are super tough, so pause after each question. Use those phones and see who can come up with the answers the fastest. In today's Twisted Challenge, there will be 30 questions. Are you ready to see if you are a true movie maniac? Good luck and have fun. Question 1. The abominable Dr. Phibes is Don Juan DeMarco's dad, creator, in this 1990 film. Answer: Vincent Price, who is Dr. Phibes, and Johnny Depp, who is Don Juan DeMarco, star in Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands. Question 2. Morticia Addams, 1991, plays the emotionally unstable mistress of Bela Lugosi, 1994, in this 1989 comedy. Answer: Angelica Houston, who is Morticia in The Addams Family, and Martin Landau, who is Bela Lugosi in Ed Wood, star in Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors. Question 3. Miss Daisy takes Dolores Claiborne on a ride into the past in this touching 1991 film about friendship between two groups of women. Answer: Jessica Tandy, who is Miss Daisy in Driving Miss Daisy, and Kathy Bates, who is Dolores Claiborne, star in Fried Green Tomatoes. Question 4. Anastasia, 1956, rocks Captain Queeg's boat when she re-enters his life years after breaking his heart in Paris in his 1942 classic. Answer: Ingrid Bergman, who is Anastasia, and Humphrey Bogart, who is Captain Queeg in The Caine Mutiny, star in the Michael Curtiz film Casablanca. Question 5. Beckett would like to kick the ass of Cleopatra, 1963, in this 1966 film about a highly dysfunctional relationship. Answer: Richard Burton, who was Beckett, and Elizabeth Taylor, who was Cleopatra, star in Mike Nichols' Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Question 6. Mr. Saturday Night may not live to see Sunday after becoming Jake LaMotta's shrink in this 1999 comedy. Answer: Billy Crystal, who was Mr. Saturday Night, and Robert De Niro, who was Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull, star in Harold Ramis's Analyze This. Question 7. Red Grant treats Duddy Kravitz like an apprentice as they hunt down a dangerous denizen of the deep in this 1975 blockbuster. Answer: Robert Shaw, who was Red Grant in From Russia with Love, and Richard Dreyfuss, who was Duddy Kravitz in The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, star in Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Question 8. Boo Radley gives King Arthur, 1967, a close shave in this 1993 character-driven drama. Answer: Robert Duvall, who was Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird, and Richard Harris, who was King Arthur in Camelot, star in Wrestling Ernest Hemingway. Question 9. Hercule Poirot, 1974, helps this pretty woman to play detective and expose a huge cover-up in this 2000 legal drama. Answer: Albert Finney, who was Poirot in Murder on the Orient Express, and Julia Roberts, who was Pretty Woman, star in Steven Soderbergh's Erin Brockovich. Question 10. Ike Turner shakes up Johnny Mnemonic on a high-speed cyber adventure through a simulated reality in this 1999 sci-fi film. Answer: Lawrence Fishburne, who was Ike Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It, and Keanu Reeves, who was Johnny Mnemonic, star in The Wachowski Brothers' The Matrix. Question 11. Martin the Martian, 1999, takes Teen Wolf on a hair-raising trip through time in this entertaining 1985 film. Answer: Christopher Lloyd, who was Martin in My Favorite Martian, and Michael J. Fox, who was the Teen Wolf, star in Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future. Question 12. This ugly American frankly does not give a damn about Scarlett O'Hara in this powerful 1951 drama. Answer: Marlon Brando, who is the ugly American, and Vivian Leigh, who is Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, star in Elia Kazan's A Streetcar Named Desire. Question 13. Quasimodo 1939 has a hunch that Rhett Butler and the crew would like him off their backs in this 1935 classic. Answer: Charles Laughton, who was Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Clark Gable, who is Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, star in Mutiny on the Bounty. Question 14. The tall guy and rambling Rose feel small in this special theme park when these giant creatures break loose and go wild in this 1993 thriller. Answer: Jeff Goldblum, who is the tall guy, and Laura Dern, who is Rambling Rose, star in Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. Question 15. Henry Higgins, 1964, would like to know when Ben-Hur, 1959, will be finished painting his ceiling in this 1965 historical drama. Answer: Rex Harrison, who is Higgins in My Fair Lady, and Charlton Heston, who is Ben-Hur, star in The Agony and the Ecstasy. Question 16. Citizen Kane uses his political pull to bring down Moses, 1956, in this 1958 film noir masterpiece. Answer: Orson Welles, who is Citizen Kane, and Charlton Heston, who is Moses in the Ten Commandments, star in Orson Welles' Touch of Evil. Question 17. Brubaker and the Marathon Man run into a huge political conspiracy in this 1976 docudrama. Answer, Robert Redford, who was Brubaker, and Dustin Hoffman, who was the Marathon Man, star in Alan J. Pakula's All the President's Men. Question 18. The bad lieutenant won't let Miss Firecracker play any music until she shows him some sparks in this unusual 1993 drama. Answer, Harvey Keitel, who was the bad lieutenant, and Holly Hunter, who was Miss Firecracker, star in Jane Campion's The Piano. Question 19. Matt Helm and Danny Ocean, 1960, team up to run a riverboat gambling casino in this 1963 Western. Answer, Dean Martin, who was Matt Helm, and Frank Sinatra, who was Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11, star in Robert Aldrich's Four for Texas. Question 20. The Penguin, 1966, teaches Rambo how to be a better boxer in this 1976 film. Answer, Burgess Meredith, who was the Penguin in Batman the movie, and Sylvester Stallone, who was Rambo, star in John G. Avildsen's Rocky. Question 21. Fast Eddie Felson and The Natural are two cons who out-con a con in this 1973 film. Answer, Paul Newman, who was Felson in The Hustler, and Robert Redford, who was The Natural, star in George Roy Hill's The Sting. Question 22. The Great Gatsby, 1974, is a CIA agent on the run who hides out with Bonnie Parker, 1967, in this 1975 suspense thriller. Answer, Robert Redford, who was the Great Gatsby, and Faye Dunaway, who was Bonnie Parker in Bonnie and Clyde, star in Sidney Pollack's 3 Days of the Condor. Question 23. Lawrence of Arabia is a manipulative film director who uses Charles Manson, 1976, for his most dangerous shots in this 1980 black comedy. Answer, Peter O'Toole, who was Lawrence of Arabia, and Steve Railsback, who was Manson in Helter Skelter, star in The Stuntman. Question 24. Michael Corleone gets in trouble with the mob after putting his trust in Jack Sparrow in this 1997 crime drama. Answer, Al Pacino, who was Michael Corleone in The Godfather, and Johnny Depp, who was Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, star in Donnie Brasco. Question 25. Virgil Tibbs finds himself shackled to the Boston Strangler, 1968, in this 1958 survival drama. Answer, Sidney Poitier, who was Virgil Tibbs in the Heat of the Night, and Tony Curtis, who was the Boston Strangler, star in Stanley Kramer's The Defiant Ones. Question 26. The Penguin, 1992, and the Terminator find out that they're birds of a feather in this 1988 comedy. Answer, Danny DeVito, who was the Penguin in Batman Returns, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the Terminator, star in Ivan Reitman's Twins. Question 27. Carrie sings the blues in a bad relationship with Ty Cobb in this 1980 film biography? Answer: Sissy Spacek, who was Carrie, and Tommy Lee Jones, who was Ty Cobb in Cobb, star in Michael Apted's Coal Miner's Daughter. Question 28. Mildred Pierce is tormented by this dead ringer, 1964, in this 1962 chiller. Answer: Joan Crawford, who was Mildred Pierce, and Betty Davis, who was Dead Ringer, star in Robert Aldrich's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Question 29. Cody Jarrett shoves a grapefruit into the face of Elizabeth Frankenstein, 1931, in this 1931 gangster classic. Answer: James Cagney, who was Cody Jarrett in White Heat, and Mae Clarke, who was Elizabeth Frankenstein in Frankenstein, star in Public Enemy. And question 30. McClintock returns to Ireland, falls in love with Esmeralda, 1939, and fights her disapproving brother in this sprawling 1952 film. Answer: John Wayne, who was McClintock, and Maureen O'Hara, who was Esmeralda in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, star in John Ford's The Quiet Man. Well, thank you so much for joining me for Twisted Movie Trivia, the Super Challenge. And please remember to like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, and tell your friends. I would surely appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.